welcome my Disney guests. I was thinking this week about what video I wanted to put out, and I kept thinking about all the stories of Disney experiences that I've had, stories that other people have shared with me. And then I remembered Walt at heart was a storyteller. So that's what this video is going to be, is I'm going to tell you stories. Most of them are funny, some of them are sweet, and I would love to hear from you about stories that you've had in experiences in the parks. So let's get started with our stories. So, once upon a time, there once was a little girl who was brought to a magical kingdom for her very first time. And while her grandfather called her princess, she didn't feel like she owned the kingdom. She felt like she belonged to the kingdom. So here are the stories of this little princess and her experiences in this magical kingdom. I spent many happy years going to Disneyland pretty much every year as I grew up. And then when I got married and had my own kids, well, guess what? We went to Disneyland as well. My kids are pretty silly in their own right, and they made for some really interesting stories throughout the years. And this was my son's 9th birthday, and at the time, and I'm assuming it's still there, I haven't seen it, you could go into City Hall and there's an old-fashioned phone, and if it's your birthday, you can get a birthday phone call. He thought it was hilarious that it was Goofy who sang happy birthday to himself. I believe I've shared this story before, but this also was the trip that my son on his birthday did get a little bit of a fever, and he remembers this being as one of his favorite Disney trips because he knew how important Disneyland was to me, and I sat by his side while he took a nap and waited for the medicine to kick in and break his fever. Back when Captain EO was running in Disneyland, we would wait outside before the theater opened, and they would show this animation of the logo, and it would pop up a captain and then an EO and then this triangle. So my son started saying, after about the third time of seeing this, he would say, "Captain EO triangle." One of the fun stories that my kids always seem to remember is riding Alice in Wonderland. And at this point where you come out of the building, the ride stopped. And you can tell at the time they did not have the barricades up on the track. So we had to go and walk back through the ride backwards. They thought that was pretty cool. My oldest daughter and my oldest son are self-proclaimed carnivores, so keeping them fed in Disneyland was sometimes a bit of a challenge. This is a funny story regarding Splash Mountain. Now, my oldest daughter is an artist, and she has been drawing since she was 4 and always carried around this big pouch that had all her pencils and notepads and so forth. And we rode Splash Mountain, and it got stuck right at the top of the drop. And it stayed there for about 10 minutes. People were looking up at us and pointing and laughing, and we couldn't figure out what the point was until the ride finally worked, and then they dropped us. And we realized that gave the pool at the bottom a chance to fill up completely. So, needless to say, we were soaked, and my daughter was in the front of the ride, and she stood up to hold her art pouch over her head, and we got yelled at via speaker by one of the cast members to please sit down on the ride. On one of our trips, we were there the day before Star Tours was due to open, and we were sitting and waiting for one of our sons to get over a headache, and a cast member came up and asked us if we wanted to ride Star Tours, and he gave us fast passes for that ride before it opened to the public. My oldest son's a little bit of a prankster. So on Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, there is some switchbacks in the caverns and caves. and he likes to hide in one of those alcoves and jump out at whoever comes around the corner next. And it's kind of funny because even though he may not be on the trip with me, I still look around that corner expecting him to jump out. And this is a little tale about why to be nice to the cast members, because they just want to help. I was at Disneyland with my daughter on her 18th birthday. This was when you got to come in for free on your birthday. We were waiting for fireworks and I needed to take a rest break. And by the time I was coming back, they had the ropes up and they were directing traffic, foot traffic in different directions. And it was taking me away from where my daughter was. And there was a lady in front of me and she was chewing out the cast member for not letting her go the way she wanted to. And she stomped off and was very upset. And I got up to the cast member and I said, "I'm here. My daughter's over there. How do I get there?" And he lifted up the rope and he said, "Go on through." One of my most special Disney trips so far was the very first time my granddaughter got to go on her first trip to Disney when she was 2. Now at the age of 2, she didn't have a very big vocabulary, but when he walked by, she knew exactly who Flynn was, and that's all she said was, "Flynn, Flynn, Flynn." Well, one of the cast members came up and asked, "Is she the one who said Flynn?" And we said yes, and he said, "Have her parents and her come follow me." And he took her over to a side door. She got to have a private meet and greet with Flynn and Rapunzel and escort them out. She was too shy to hold Flynn's hand, but she was so happy. Yes, that's me squealing in the background. So 50 years later, that little princess now has her own little princesses to take to Disneyland and still feels like she belongs to the kingdom. Thank you for the magic, Walt, for the magic that you shared with so many families before and after mine. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and tell me one of your favorite Disney stories.